Have you ever wondered why some people collapse under pressure, while others remain composed, resilient, and self-assured, even as everything around them seems to be falling apart? The harsh reality is this: most people are emotionally fragile. One setback, a slight criticism, or a minor delay is enough to send them spiraling into anxiety and despair. And the consequences are devastating. Relationships shatter, careers derail, and lives waste away in fear, distraction, and a relentless craving for approval. But there is a way, a path forged through discipline, pain, and courage, walked by emperors, warriors, athletes, leaders, and everyday people who chose not to live as victims. This path has a name: Stoicism. And if you stay with me until the end of this video and apply what I'll share, you'll discover what I call the secret of the unshakable. It's the key to becoming mentally strong, even in the fiercest storms, and learning to lead with clarity and strength no matter the situation. My name is Adriano, and for over 10 years I've immersed myself in Stoic philosophy, not as a casual reader, but as someone who used it to survive and rebuild from within. And today I'm here to show you how this timeless wisdom can transform your life too, starting with something very simple: regaining your inner control. Have you noticed how a single rude comment, someone cutting you off in traffic, or a message left unread, can completely ruin your day and hijack your mind? You spiral into imaginary arguments, mental chaos, bitterness, and stress because you unknowingly gave someone else control over your emotions. Stoicism teaches that true freedom begins when we learn to master the only thing we genuinely own: our mind and how we choose to respond. Epictetus once said, "Anyone capable of angering you becomes your master." And unfortunately, that couldn't be more true in the way we live today. Each time you lose control, you give away your power. You bow down to others and diminish your own strength and potential. Let's be honest. How often have you regretted something you blurted out in a moment of impulse, damaged a bond, missed a chance, ruined a moment? In a world that moves fast and demands instant responses, the ability to pause, even for 5 seconds, has become a rare and powerful form of self-mastery. And this isn't just metaphorical. A study by Harvard University confirmed that taking a few deep breaths before reacting calms your brain's emotional center. It lowers activity in the amygdala, the part responsible for impulsive reactions, and activates the prefrontal cortex, which handles reasoned and thoughtful choices. This isn't pop psychology, it's neuroscience. When Will Smith slapped someone on stage at the Oscars, he wasn't reacting to a joke, he was responding to unprocessed pain and pressure. Because he failed to control his own mind, he lost people's trust, lost important deals, and saw his reputation crumble. Just one moment, one decision, one impulse, and everything shifted. Now bring this to your own life. Picture yourself in a meeting, and suddenly someone interrupts or criticizes your work right in front of everyone else. What's your gut reaction? To defend yourself, to argue, to snap back? But what would a Stoic do in that situation? A Stoic would stay quiet, take a breath, and then reflect. Is this criticism an attack, or is it a chance to grow? As Marcus Aurelius said, if it's true, accept it. If it's false, ignore it. Simple but deeply empowering. This principle applies at home, on the road, at work, in messages, in the store, with strangers, and with those you love. Your inner peace hinges on one choice: to react like the crowd, or to respond with calm like the few who truly lead themselves. Here's a practical tip. Build the habit of a conscious pause. When something irritates you, count to 5 and ask yourself, does this really matter? Is it worth my energy? Is this even within my control? 9 out of 10 times the answer is no. That brief pause can protect your entire day, your energy, and your reputation. You don't need to become emotionless, but you must realize that feeling emotions is human. Reacting without restraint, though, is a choice, and that's where your power lies. When you control your reactions, people trust you more. You become predictable, in the best possible sense. You don't overreact. You don't lose control. You remain calm in chaos, and today that's rare, that's respected, that's emotional leadership. You begin to influence rooms not by being louder, but by speaking clearly, listening fully, and standing firm like someone the wind cannot shake. Worrying about a future that hasn't even arrived, obsessing over what others think of you, and exhausting yourself trying to be flawless, all of it drains your mind. Stoicism teaches you to identify what genuinely belongs to you and what doesn't. Life is split in two, what you can control and everything else. Letting go of what you can't govern is vital, but most people do the opposite. They try to change others, script life, and force situations. But life isn't a script. It's a turbulent ocean, and those who resist its waves often drown, just like Britney Spears experienced. For years, she was the face of America's sweetheart, yet behind the scenes, her choices, freedom, and voice were all in the hands of others. When you fight what's outside of your control, you lose grip of what's within. And that loss led to a public breakdown, a cry for help few were willing to hear. Now reflect on your own life. How many times have you sacrificed peace trying to understand someone else's behavior? How often have you ruminated over something from the past, or drained your energy attempting to change someone's mind when you could have simply moved on? You can't control others' thoughts, reactions, or how they treat you, but you can completely choose your actions, your reactions, and your mental focus. When you commit to handling only what lies within your reach, you free yourself from circumstances, sleep more peacefully, breathe more calmly, and think more clearly. Peace doesn't arise from controlling the external world. It comes from accepting the uncontrollable and owning what's truly yours with full responsibility. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, once said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." Someone who lost his family, his freedom and dignity, yet still found inner strength, that's the essence of Stoicism. It applies today. If you lose your job, you can't change the company's decision, but you can fully control how you respond and move forward. Whether it's a breakup, a sudden crisis, or a global shift, when life changes without warning, what remains is you, your mind, and your power to choose. Here's a practical exercise. Whenever something upsets you or triggers anxiety, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is yes, take action. Do everything in your power. But if the answer is no, then release it and focus only on what is yours to manage. Leave what isn't yours to time, to life, to God, to the universe, whatever makes sense to you. But let it go, because holding on doesn't mean strength. It shows a lack of clarity. This isn't giving up. It's emotional intelligence, it's practical wisdom. While others try to grasp the wind, the Stoic watches his step. He stays grounded, even if everything else is shifting around him. And that's why he leads. Because someone who rules their inner world doesn't depend on the outer one to move forward. The sooner you embrace this, the lighter your life becomes, because chasing control over the uncontrollable is like running with an anchor tied to your foot. You may move, but always in pain, always wasting energy. Let go, focus on what is in your hands, and even in chaos you'll find a peace no one can steal. That's the peace of the unshakable. Have you noticed how easy it is to make promises to yourself, and how often you break them the next day? I'll start eating healthy on Monday. Tomorrow I'll wake up early. This is the last time I'll do this, but when the moment comes, you fold. Then guilt creeps in, frustration, that spinning in circles feeling like you're always back at the start, because without discipline, even the biggest dreams turn to dust. Most people think discipline is a prison, something that restricts or punishes, but what really traps you is the absence of discipline. It ties you to addictions, laziness, and stagnation. As Seneca said, to be a slave to desire is the worst kind of slavery, and he was absolutely right. When you don't govern your impulses, they drag you. You say yes to comfort, yes to ease, yes to pleasure, and no to discipline, sacrifice, and consistency. And that's where most people fail, because discipline is what turns I want into I achieved, and there are no shortcuts on that road. Every meaningful achievement comes from repetition, from sacrifice, from pain. Science confirms it. A study from University College London found that it takes about 66 days to build a solid habit. That means over 2 months of repeating the same behavior before it starts feeling natural. But most people quit after 1 week. Why? Because they're hooked on fast results. They confuse feeling good with making progress. And that's poison. Take Mike Tyson. He had everything. Talent, power, fame, wealth worth billions in today's money, but lacked discipline and lost nearly all of it. Because talent without discipline is like a sharp blade with no control. It cuts others, but eventually it turns on the one holding it. Now ask yourself, how many chances have you missed simply because you couldn't stay consistent? How many times have you promised yourself a change, yet stayed stuck in the same place? How many unfinished plans, broken commitments, and beginnings without endings? Discipline is the bridge between what you intend and what you achieve. Without it, your dreams may soar, but your life will crawl. That's where Stoicism becomes a practical tool. Marcus Aurelius, though the emperor of Rome, made a habit of writing in his journal daily. He reflected deeply, reviewed his behavior, and reminded himself to live as if each day were his last. This isn't abstract philosophy, it's discipline put into practice. He could have surrendered to luxury, pride, or power, but he chose to live with restraint, intention, and self-control. That's real strength, the freedom of not being ruled by your impulses. Now, bring that into your own routine. Waking early, even when you don't feel like it. Eating with awareness when junk food seems easier. Studying even when you're exhausted. Saying no to distractions that seem harmless but steal your time and energy. These small daily choices shape who you become. In the end, you are what you repeat. As Aristotle once said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. If you want different outcomes, you need different habits. And habits are born from discipline. If you're waiting to feel motivated, forget it. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. What keeps you going when nothing else works is discipline. That quiet force that takes you where few ever reach. Maybe you're thinking, I'm lazy, I've never been disciplined, I've failed 1,000 times. Let me tell you something. You are not what you've done so far. You are what you choose to do next. Discipline isn't born perfect. It's trained. It's earned through sweat. And everyone starts at the same place from zero. Look at Jocko Willink, a former Navy officer who could have retired quietly. Instead, he chose to be a living example of discipline. He wakes up at 4:30 every morning, trains hard, writes, teaches. Millions follow him because he lives what he teaches. And his message, discipline equals freedom. Because with discipline, you don't depend on motivation, on mood, on luck, or on others. You do what needs to be done, period. So if you want to be unshakable, stop waiting for inspiration. Start taking action. Build a routine. Keep the promises you make to yourself. Stand by your word even when no one is watching, because your real strength isn't in what you say you'll do. It's in what you actually do when nobody's around. That's character. That's Stoicism in motion. That's what turns ordinary people into leaders of themselves. Have you ever felt like you're talking too much, but no one's really listening? Have you ever felt the constant need to explain yourself, to justify every move, to defend your silence, as if being quiet were a sign of weakness? These days, silence is seen as agreement. Not giving an opinion is called indifference, and choosing not to express oneself is mistaken for weakness. But what if I told you that real strength isn't in loud words, but in the ability to stay silent when it matters most? Stoic philosophy has always understood silence not as a lack of power, but as evidence of inner mastery. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once said, "Silence is a wall around wisdom," and he knew exactly what that meant because he lived surrounded by flatterers, plotters, enemies, and never-ending problems. He could have ruled through fear, shouting commands and using his title as a weapon, but instead he chose to observe, to reflect, to speak little, because a true leader doesn't need to raise their voice to be respected. They need to be whole today. However, it's the opposite. Everyone has to comment on everything at all times. If you stay quiet online, they say you're sitting on the fence. Each conversation feels like a shouting contest, where the loudest person wins, where interruption is mistaken for intelligence, and going viral matters more than listening. We're addicted to expression, yet ironically feel increasingly empty. And it's not random. A recent study by the Pew Research Center showed that excessive use of social media is directly linked to rising levels of anxiety, stress, and inadequacy. Overexposure is quietly damaging our well-being. And the scariest part? Most don't realize it until they're drowning in the noise. What does Stoicism offer as a remedy? The discipline to withdraw the ability to master oneself, and the wisdom to see silence as a space for clarity, reasoning, and strategic thought. Silence isn't weakness. It's training, it's precision, it's control. When you choose not to react in haste, you become unshakable. When you don't explain yourself after hollow accusations, when you don't play the provocateur's game, you turn invisible to their attacks, because nothing disarms a troublemaker more than the calm of someone they cannot shake. And this applies to everyday life in a deeply practical way. Think about a couple arguing the urge to win, to have the last word, to prove your point, but what usually happens? The more you speak, the deeper the damage. The Stoic mind asks, will words bring peace now, or will silence do more? And most of the time, peace comes through restraint, not argument. For in your job, someone criticizes you publicly. They want to trigger you, to make you lose control, but you pause, take a breath, look them in the eyes and either respond with calm or not at all, because you know your worth isn't defined by fast replies. That quiet power says more than 1,000 defensive words. It shows emotional maturity, stability, and influence. And if anyone embodies this quietly, it's Keanu Reeves, one of Hollywood's most admired, not because he speaks the most, not because he's always in headlines, but because he's the opposite. Peaceful, scandal-free, and chooses silence over public fights. He never feels the need to prove anything. His way of living speaks louder than explanations, and that's Stoicism in action, without ever naming it. We live in times where many people expose themselves constantly, reacting to every criticism, explaining, justifying, and arguing. And the more they speak, the less they're respected, because too many words often expose weakness, insecurity, or emotional instability. Here's a powerful practice. Before replying to criticism, provocation, or negativity, pause for 30 seconds and ask yourself, will this response solve anything? Will it uplift me? Or will it just fuel the conflict and drain my energy? Most of the time, silence is your best reply. And that silence is not weakness, and it's a strategy. While the other person wastes energy trying to throw you off, you remain steady. That unshakable calm is what truly unsettles them. The Stoic understands that every word has its time, and silence speaks too. It communicates wisdom, mastery, and the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. That kind of inner freedom is rare and powerful. You don't have to join every discussion, answer every question, or explain yourself all the time. The more you master silence, the more you hear what truly matters, especially what's happening inside you. Then, when you finally choose to speak, your words carry meaning. They are born from thought, not reaction. The voice that speaks constantly gets lost in the noise, but the silence of one who chooses the right moment, that echoes. Those who always need to be seen often haven't seen themselves, but the one who knows themselves fully has nothing to prove. That kind of self-awareness is an unshakable strength. Whoever can master themselves can lead in any situation. In a world where most react, complain, explode, or play the victim, those who maintain inner control rise above. They don't just survive, they lead their lives consciously. What you heard today is not feel-good theory. It's practice, a daily choice, a change in attitude that begins now and can reshape your routine, your relationships, your work, and above all, your relationship with yourself. If you apply this today, not tomorrow, not on Monday, but right now, you'll already notice the shift. You'll go to bed lighter, act with more clarity, speak with intention, stop wasting time on what's out of your hands, and start building strength on what is. Thank you for staying with me until now. If this journey makes sense to you, then in the next video, the one showing up on your screen, you'll take one more step in your path towards Stoic wisdom and become 1% better than you were before. I'll be there waiting for you. Let's keep climbing this mountain together and with silence, presence, and unshakable purpose.